live. Tell your friends you're listening to the Verhoeven Effect podcast. I'm Conlon.
And I'm Nathan.
We have another very special episode. We have the 1998 movie The General. Nathan, what's your history with The General? As you
Uh,
suggested.
this was something I found. I think I found this in like 2003. I think it was on HBO or something. And this was like I've never heard of this. It was John Voight's in this, movie playing an Irish cop. Like what's? And I knew who Brendan Gleeson was, but I knew him from 28 Days Later, which was a movie he was in like later than this.
Yeah.
So maybe I actually discovered this later.
I mean, that 20 Days Later was like 2001 or something like that. So,
Oh, okay.
or 2002. It's a post. It's a post 9/11 movie.
So
Or
yeah,
parallel, accidental parallel. I can't remember.
yeah, I don't remember, but yeah, I know this. It's like, oh, okay. I recognize both the actors. I mean, John Voight, of course, is a John Borman recurring guy,
Yeah.
and
At least he did a better job here with his Irish than he did with like whatever it was Creole or whatever he was doing in like the Anaconda movie or something.
oh, I don't remember that
Oh
one.
yeah, it's awful. I
Yeah.
don't know, or funny or whatever.
That's a weird accent. Those Cajun accents. It's like, what are those? What country are those guys from? The United States? Okay, it's very very
Just
unique.
like isolated French drunk people in New Orleans.
Yeah, yeah. Who seem to enunciate every word like in backwards or something. It's like, okay, we're having fun.
Yeah, I think for one of the Jean Claude Van Damme movies, where I think there's multiple ones where he has like a twin, but one of them he was supposed to be like a twin from America. But it's like, yeah, you're not asking Jean Claude Van Damme to do accents, so they just made his backstory that he was like raised in New Orleans.
Okay. That's why he talks that way. Well, remember when who was the other guy? Jason Statham. It's like, yeah, you're a cowboy from America. It's like, well, that he's not that kind of actor. It's like, yeah, go ahead, have fun. Uh, but yeah, that's where I discovered this one,
Okay.
and it was about something I knew nothing about.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't know. I didn't even know this was a true story. Well, I guess I still don't know. I didn't look at do any research on it, but didn't know
Oh
it
no,
was.
it was a true story. This
Okay.
guy wasn't as fun as he was in the movie. In
Well,
the
I mean, that's kind of the progression. As he starts out, they give him, they give the movie gives him sympathy, and then over time is like, oh, he's not a fun person anymore.
no, he starts to,
I mean, it's
uh,
almost right as we have Living Daylights as well, like a guy who just robbed. Although he's more fun than the guy in Living Daylights, but
yeah,
it's very similar. Where he just like stole a bunch of stole a bunch of stuff from people on the farm. Weirdly had like connections with lawyers that would always get him off. Had a weird like cabal of women who would do all his like dirty work.
yeah. No, he was a real guy, and he was really killed by the IRA.
Okay.
So, and it's an interesting because like his reign was like from the 80s, mid 80s to the mid 90s.
Okay.
That was kind of his time, and it's sort of, if you know anything about like the history of Ireland, like in that time, it's like, oh yeah, the whole country just shifted under everyone's feet. It went from being the poorest country in Western Europe to being a very successful. It was well on its way to being a very successful, well-off country, and kind of a lot of these guys just got left behind. It's like because you saw how he grew up, and then by the time he gets shot at the end, it's like, oh, okay, it's like that. The whole country's kind of changed.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like the way he grew up and stuff was like, yeah, it was literally the only third world country in Western Europe. And then it became something great and then died. Now it's something weird. So it's a place where no one can afford a house.
Yeah.
It's like,
Which I don't know. It's everywhere. So I guess.
yeah, that seems to be like a Western nation's problem now.
I know it was weird because I heard there was like an interview I saw where basically they're interviewing all these Irish people that like live in Italy now, because I
Yeah,
guess it's like really cheap to get a house in like northern Italy or southern Italy. I can't remember which one is worse or better or whatever. And like yeah, there's just like Yeah, they just had a handful of people around that they could interview that are like doing the exact same thing. Like, this is the only place I can afford a house. It's like, that's weird.
Yeah, Americans doing that too. Italy has like South Korean, Japanese levels of birth.
Okay.
Uh, that's what's going on there. They're one of those. They're starting to call those three generation countries now.
Yeah.
In three generations, 80% of the people there won't be there anymore. It's like, oh, okay, because there's people that are moving to Japan now from America
Yeah.
to buy houses in the country because it's like, oh, I have those jobs where you do computer stuff all day.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I can just figure out how to fix this house in the Japanese countryside. And people don't in Japan don't want to buy them. Number one, there's hardly any people left, and number two, they think if you buy houses that people died in, they're haunted or something. And it's like, we don't care. And
Yeah.
yeah, cool. The spirits of your ancestors don't bother me
I'll
none.
kill them too.
Yeah, I'm housing is so screwed up in my country. I'm willing to go to a country where I don't even speak the language and
Fight ghosts for
like that.
housing.
And it's hotter than Central America there half the year. It's like, wee, fun.
Yeah, but that mass politeness is it's got to be fun sometimes. So.
I've worked with a lot of Japanese people. I find them cool. I generally they seem cool. I don't understand a lot of stuff, but it's like, yeah, this guy's cool. A lot of model people, a lot of Japanese guys, and it's like they're smiling, they're upbeat, they tell you what they like, they tell you what they don't like. It's very good to have them talk about your models. Like, you're very good on paint. You're no good at building. This is terrible. This is what a child would do. It's
Oh,
like,
that's
thank
like an autistic's dream, just straightforward.
yeah, yeah. It's like, this guy's smiling at me. I can't be mad. He's saying this stuff. It's like, this is really bad. Okay, yeah, you're right. Actually, I see the.
I'll
truth
get
in it.
better, thank you.
Yeah. It's like, you're very good at painting. Your color choices are good. You have good finish. You cannot build a model though. Terrible. As baby would build like this. Like, yeah, okay. You know what? You're not wrong.
um, so yeah, this came out December 18th, 1988. I don't really know where, because I've never heard of this before. So this wasn't like an HBO movie or something like that. It kind of feels
This
like one.
was privately financed in Ireland and
Okay.
released by Warner Brothers.
All right.
Shot in black and white. I watched the black and white version for the podcast. I guess the American home video release is in color, but I didn't. I saw it in black and white, and that's
Oh,
fine.
okay. So I thought they were going for something. I thought like over time it just gets more black and white. But it is very muted. But it's
Yeah,
not the version I watched is not black and white. It seems to be like a lot. There's a lot more scenes that take place at night in the back half, and so it feels almost black and white by the time you get to the end of the movie. So,
yeah,
um,
yeah. Originally, well, shot in black and white or shot in color, but presented in black and white.
yeah,
So that's, but on some of the home video releases here, it presented in color. I don't remember what I originally saw it in. I know last night I saw it in black and white. So,
okay. I saw it on Flex, or Plex, and
yes.
it was like I said, it's in color, but it's very little color, so it's very muted. I don't know if they're trying to go for that bleach bypass look or because that was very popular at the time.
According to John Borman, he wanted it to look like a noir crime film,
Yeah.
just set in Ireland. And he goes in because he lived in Ireland for like 20 years, and he said there is a unique bleakness to Ireland that it's like he thought it was important to capture. It was mostly filmed in like Dublin, which is their main hub city.
Yeah.
And he said there is a bleakness to Ireland he really wanted to capture because he thought it really like informed a lot about the country. Because it's like it's kind of always overcast,
Yeah.
and of course these are guys that are like living on the fringes of a society that's struggling a lot. So
So yeah, directed by John Borman. Cinematographer is Seamus Deasy.
yep, no information on him.
Okay.
Did a lot of stuff for like RTE, which is something in Irish, their national television stuff, a few movie things, but not much.
Yeah, he was camera electrical and Rain of Fire. That looks like his biggest thing.
Yeah,
But yeah, for his cinematographer, it looks like, yeah, it's probably a lot of Irish stuff.
yeah.
So
The Irish have. There's a lot of names we're going to stumble over in this because they're police and all that. Everything has a name that sounds like something elvish from Lord of the Rings, and then it has, of course, the English like variant. So yeah,
I mean, they still teach like Gaelic there or whatever that.
yeah. They've brought it back because for like 1,000 years the British were like, you don't speak that language or we'll kill you, and then now it's like they have to do the Canadian thing where you have to have it in English and French. Well, they have to have it in English and Irish or whatever the national. I
Yeah,
think
but I
it's
feel like I don't ever hear any like Irish people talk that language like
oh,
ever.
you can, yeah, they do it.
Okay.
There's younger people learn it in college now, and they do whole like radio presentations in it. But
Huh.
it's with really young people doing it, so it sounds because if you had a bunch of old guys doing it, it's like, oh yeah, they remember this from when they were kids. But yeah, they have people like do dual radio presentations in it, and it sounds like it's like, oh, the elves from the Lord of the Rings plotting or something. It's like it sounds magical
Yeah.
and mystical.
Well,
But then when you
it's
learn,
like one of those languages that are like missing consonants, and so
yeah,
it's just like things
yeah,
happen.
when you learn about the nuts and bolts of it, like, oh, how do you add a word? How do you express verb tenses? And it's like, oh, you just add stuff to the end of it. It's like, oh, okay, this is now give me Germanic language structure, please. As
Ri-
nonsensical as that is, at least I know what's going on. It's like, oh, just add letters. It's like, oh God, this is like Hungarian or something. Like, what are we doing? How do you put new words in? Well, how do you say email? It's like,
yeah. The English language you just steal. It's like, oh, what's that? It's like, oh, cool, we'll take it.
yeah.
Like, are you gonna change it? Like, no. It's just
Well,
ours
we'll,
now.
we'll gradually mispronounce
Oh
it.
yeah. Of course. I mean, you have to. Yeah, that's how you gentrify it. So.
Yeah.
um, it was written by John Borman based on a book by Paul Williams, which I didn't read the book at all. I don't even know if is it also just called The General or
Yes.
okay. Cast is Brendan Gleeson, Adrian Dunbar, Sean McGinley, and John Voight isn't listed here, but he's like the other major actor. Although he's really not in it a whole lot. He's kind of like a guest character that shows up every now and then. But at the beginning, it makes it seem like he's going to be like um, the direct folly to Martin, but he's not really. He just kind of shows up and
Yeah.
is angry at. Interesting character in that he's like almost like believes in Martin, where it's like you're smart, you shouldn't have to do this.
Yeah. He wants him to do better.
Yeah.
He's disappointed him he's like a father figure almost. Not quite, but kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy who wrote this book took Veronica Guerin's seat after she got murdered. So he
Oh,
was a crime
I don't
reporter.
know. Nathan, inform me. Who's Veronica Guerin?
Oh, Veronica Guerin was an investigative journalist in doing organized crime
Oh, okay.
in Ireland in the 90s, and she was basically like contract murdered.
Hmm.
Which, like, well, we hear that and we're like, oh, okay, but you got to remember it's a country with a population of like 5 million people. It's like that's a big deal when your reporters get like murdered like that, because it was about I forget. It was oh, there's a movie about that too called Veronica Guerin, but it's like it was when drug gangs were starting to become a problem there.
Okay.
People importing like I don't know cocaine, heroin, whatever they're doing.
Which that's a part of this movie too. So.
Yes, yeah, that they're related. That's why he took her seat at the I don't know the Times of their Dublin or whatever the big paper is over there. It was like that's called the Veronica Guerin seat now, the crime beat, because she actually got murdered by gangsters that just did a contract killing on her. And then the paper kept like, you're not going to intimidate us. They kept publishing. It's like, you killed one of our reporters, and they're like, we'll get you too. And it's like, you can't get all of us. Because even the government was like, hey, could you guys back off? Like, no, no, like our reporters were not. So yeah, so that's this guy took over the. That's what that's related to. I thought you knew about that. That's a kind of. I know there's a movie. It's a famous story though. It's because like it's a lot of things that happen in Ireland. It's like it's a really small place, but all the characters are intensively interesting people.
Yeah.
They're like quirky people. They're not like these just kind of just hard faced killers and whatever. They all have a story, and they and they've all like, well, our logic has led us here, and obviously it's faulty, but we've told a tale along the way. And
Yeah, like that's maybe maybe that's the enticing thing about our heritage is that Irish tend to be like these almost magically sad people.
yeah,
Where it's like they make sadness interesting. They're like a blues singer. like
yeah, they really take that whole learning from your mistakes to like the next level. It was like you learn from your mistakes. And in my case, it's my whole life. And why? And it's like, oh,
you
okay.
never stop learning if you've never stopped making
Yeah.
mistakes.
And you screw up completely, and it's like, why do you keep screwing up? It's like it's who I am. It's in the genes. It's like, okay, wow, all right. But yeah, but Irish criminals, gangsters, and terrorists are always, I don't know.
Poetic.
They do capture your imagination and captivate you.
Yeah.
Unlike other criminal, because like we can read, there's dozens of like there's people that are criminally active here from other like all the Russian mob guys.
Yeah.
It's like they're just hard-faced killers to us. It's like they have interesting stories too, but they don't take a lot of poetic license with it.
Yeah.
It's like, what did you do to those guys? I killed them. It's like, why? It's like they kill me. Okay, I'm sensing this isn't just a language barrier here. It's like, no, is problem is solution. It's like not very you can't like tell a whimsical tale around those
Irish
guys.
criminals were like, it's like, well, it's man versus God. God
Yeah.
always wins.
Yeah. It's the struggle, you see, between who we are and who we want to be. It's not, even our criminals are just killers. They're just I mean, they're only interesting like they have names like Machine Gun Kelly and John Dillinger. They were just famous for just insane violence.
Yeah.
They didn't really like, what was their story, and it was kind of like, I like nice suits and fast cars and machine guns, sex with the ladies. It's not as, it's like, oh, okay, you're just basically like an animal that can talk. There's nothing poetic about this.
Hedonism brought to life.
Yeah, I got an IQ of 70. I can't read. It's like, well, the Irish guys most of them can play a musical instrument.
Yeah.
Or two. There's always something cool about them.
I guess get started with Act 1. We get the titles. All events depicted in the movie occurred and contributed to the legend of Martin Cahill, a.k.a. The General. Then we get Dublin, Ireland, August 18th, 1994. Good year for music.
Yes, it was.
Let's see what albums were released on August 1994. Sorry, random aside.
Oh no, this is a good time for music for us. I'd been out of high school for a year. I think I was still floating around, like trying to figure out if auto theft was going to be a full-time job for me. Decided not to do that.
Okay, so these are the first results from Google. That doesn't say AI, but this still could all be wrong. But it says music albums August 1994. Ill Communication by Beastie Boys.
Okay.
We get Dummy by Portishead.
Okay.
We get the Dookie by Green Day.
Yep.
We get the Nirvana MTV Unplugged album, which was really good.
Yes. Where do bad folks go when they die? Doing cool acoustic covers of other people's songs.
Oh man, these must not be August. This surely cannot be August.
I think it just queued on the 94.
I mean, it says slash August '94 because we get like Soundgarden, Super Unknown, Nine Inch Nail, Downward Spiral. Like these can't have all come out in August. Let me check. I'm gonna spot check. Yeah, it says Downward Spiral is March 8th. So yeah, this is
Okay.
not correct. This is just all the cool albums from '94. Sorry.
That were out on or by
Yeah.
August, not September, not December.
So
Okay.
I could have figured this out with a better Google search, but Google did us dirty, so we'll get past that.
Google lied to us again.
They've been
Lives.
doing that a lot lately.
That's why all our lives are based on conspiracy theories now.
uh, um, yeah, so we get Martin Cahill played by Brendan Gleeson, um, which yeah, you've seen him in a bunch of stuff. I'm trying to think what do I remember him the most from.
I mean, the last thing I watched him in was he was in Bruges
Okay.
uh, in 2008, and then the Banshees of Inisherin. I'm probably not saying that right. It was kind of a parable of the Irish Civil War.
Yeah, I hear that's
Where
really good.
him and what's the guy's name? Really famous Irish actor,
Oh, Colin
uh,
Farrell.
Colin Farrell. Yeah, they play foils in that. And there's a lot of stuff. He shows up in things.
Yeah, he's in. Yeah,
He's one of those like big screen filling actors. Those kind of roles.
Although it's kind of weird, he's kind of be playing like almost a cat burglar, and he's like doesn't seem like in the kind of shape to be a cat burglar.
Well, no, he was the general. He planned it all.
Yeah, but in the beginning they have him he's doing the dirty work. So
Yeah, yeah. When he was doing the motorcycle chase and stuff, it's like, man, it's like that guy's height and size gives him away. None of the guys
So
in the
Nathan,
movie.
you can do anything with a hand in your face.
Yeah,
Which that was an
it was
interesting
all
choice.
based on stuff that guy actually did.
Yeah, that was so weird, but it actually made it for an interesting performance. So
He acted exactly like that guy. I mean, there was plenty of they had a lot of material to draw from.
okay.
But yeah, the thing where he has got his hand over his face and say it was like a pitch perfect copy of that guy.
So yeah, Martin's going to his car. A dude runs up and shoots him, and then the car rolls forward. The assassin takes off on a motorcycle that comes up, which that's always weird.
Yeah.
Was that like his buddy was just waiting until he got the shot off and then drove up and was like, "All right, get on." Like, why isn't he there
Yeah.
in the first place?
That seems to well, maybe it's I don't know. I don't know why you do it that way because it looks
Maybe because he needed the walk to be silent and then the getaway
yeah.
to be noisy. So,
I mean, I guess if two guys are sitting there with a motorcycle running next to your car, it's like they're probably going to shoot me.
we cut to a police group that's celebrating, saying they got the general. Which at this time, like, I had no idea what the hell that meant. It's like, because I thought, like, oh, is he like in the IRA or something like that? Because this is in Ireland or something like that. But the general's almost like a misnomer. That was just like his nickname. So, but for
Yeah,
a movie title, that's like so generic. But it gives nothing away what this movie is. So.
yeah. You find out he's called that later because he was in real life, and it's not quite as clear, but they were doing like the equivalent of that era's and that times like Ocean's 11, like really coordinated robberies.
Yeah.
And because they were doing like feint attacks and like testing security and then coming back, and that was not typical smash and grab. This guy, the actual guy, they say Martin Cahill was exceptionally intelligent in real life, but he was just raised in such an awful way that it's like all he did was like, I'm gonna just take advantage of every situation. I'm gonna find out the strengths and weaknesses of whoever opposes me and move accordingly. And it was very Sun Tzu type, just find the weaknesses and attack.
Um, we get his wife and people are yelling at the cops, thinking they did it, and then we cut to Inspector Kelly, played by John Voight. He's dour about this situation, and he's met by the press outside, where they think like that, did you order the hit on him or whatever? And then they talk about something about collusion with the IRA. So whether they did they go to the RA to get this guy assassinated, and then we see the assassination done in reverse. Very memento, you
Yeah.
know. um, Let me cut to Martin as a kid. He's running from the cops and stealing food. Martin gets home when a crowd fights with the cops. So like this just shows like, hey, yeah, if you fight the cops together, you won't get arrested.
'Cause they're basically in the equivalent of what we would call public housing at that time.
Yeah,
And yeah, and obviously they're throwing like it's a lot of styrofoam bricks are in motion in here,
yeah.
and styrofoam rocks because they show the women picking up ridiculously huge rocks, dropping them out of second story windows on the police. It's like that would kill someone because these are just cops like in uniform cops. These aren't like they got helmets and shields. uh,
But he's got a big bag of potatoes, so for the Irish, it's better than gold. So.
and then he has some kind of sweet cake.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was just bread, but yeah, there seemed to be some kind of filling in it, so I didn't know what the hell that was.
I just think it's like it's like some kind of sweet filled donut type food
Yeah,
because it comes up later that he's like this guy is a type 1 diabetic
yeah,
too,
yeah.
so he's not supposed to be. That's why he doesn't drink or use drugs because it would really screw him up, but he does have a bad diet. But it's like, oh yeah, this is why this guy, one of the reasons, 'cause he even says it to the guys later, it's like, yeah, well, yeah, I'm on top because I don't shoot it up my arm or piss it in the ball, you know. I keep my money. So,
Yeah, which
yeah.
a guy on their crew basically gets tortured because he's a drug addict. um, then we cut to Martin steals a pig. He gets caught, and now he's put in like some sort of like Catholic juvenile detention center. And then a bunch of boys are just lined up with their pants down. They get whacked with a paddle. It's like, well, this is weird. And then it gets even weirder when at night the priest sexually assaults Martin, who fights back, and then we just cut away from that. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, this is what this is why the Catholic Church is on the outs in Ireland. There's like dozens of movies and documentaries made about how like, oh, a 16-year-old girl in Ireland gets pregnant. Let's send her to a death camp run by the Catholic Church. Like, what? When did this happen in the 1800s, the 70s, the 80s? It's like, oh my god. So, yeah, they didn't do anything good there. Because at first, when they see a bunch of boys with their pants pulled down getting whipped by monks, you're like, well, this is the least bad things the monks can do. And then the next scene, they're like, oh no, they're doing that too. Okay, wow, this is horrifying and very true.
Yeah. Then we cut to the next scene where Martin is still like when he's a kid, and he's like on the other side of like a table of getting a visitor for basically jail. And so he's talking with his mom and Frances as a visitor, where she's introduced like, it's your girlfriend, and she's like, she's not my girlfriend. And then she admonishes him for saying he'd never get caught. And there's kind of a whip pan back and forth, and suddenly it's Martin like grown up, and back and forth, and it's Frances grown up, and it's like just a different jail. And so it's like this is a reoccurring theme in their life, which they do this very well. They get through his whole life like rather quickly and very efficiently.
They do good job of establishing the character.
Yeah. And there's like, and it just like, and that just explains everything. Like these two whip pans is like, oh, okay, here they're like, they just kind of grew up together. They're saying they're a couple, and then suddenly they are a couple. Martin's still in jail. I don't know what Frances does. She's just a housewife. I have no idea. Um, um, so yeah, this is where Frances like wants her dream is to move out of the housing that they're in, because yeah, like you said, they're in public housing. And it's very bad.
Yeah.
And then we whip pan it back. We've got the same whip pan. They're basically in the same place, but now they swap out characters, and now he's talking to his lawyer, and he's trying to get off. Which here we don't know what he's in, or do we know what he's in jail for here? Or is it just showing him in jail and him getting off?
Yeah, I think it's just showing him in jail, and I don't recall what's going on.
Okay.
with him. It's not really. It's just like now he's the guy. He's like telling his lawyer what to do.
Yeah.
It's establishing that's like, yeah, this guy's been through the system a few times.
Yeah, yeah. He's so experienced with it that he almost knows more about the law than his lawyer. um, who he's like he pays. Like even he says like tells the lawyer like I know you're ripping me off. um, Martin is released from prison, and then as they get back to like the housing complex, there's like a riot going on. Or at least there's just residents fighting the oh wait no they're busting like drug dealers or stuff in the housing block or something like that and that's who they're just gathering up criminals.
Yeah.
This is where Ned Kelly's he's there. Right now he's just like a sergeant, and like later he becomes an inspector, which I don't necessarily know the difference other than it's just like that's like detective and sergeant here in the States. So Ned and Martin talk. Ned tries to reason with Martin to move out of the slums and get a real job, which that's not going to happen.
Yeah, but it's also kind of explained because he's like, well, can I join? Because what does he say? Can I join the coppers? Or so he's like, what exactly am I going to?
Yeah, because they're basically like, yeah, you have a record. What job can he get? And it's like, no job. It's like, okay, well, I'll keep doing what I'm doing then. So.
Yeah, so the police there are called the Garda, something I can't pronounce in Ireland.
Okay.
But it's they're basically called the Garda, and which is interesting. So yeah, they have like you have patrolman, sergeant, inspector, superintendent, assistant. So he's like an inspector, so he's like third up. But it's a national police force instead of a like a regional one, or I forget.
It's not like LAPD. It's like the Irish PD.
Yeah, it's like a national police force. Famously, they do not carry firearms.
Yeah, I didn't even say that in the movie.
Guys, they can get on the phone to bring them in, but they don't normally. That's a thing they say because that even comes up in the movie. Because when they rob one store, Kenny's like, "Yeah, they have guns, we don't, so back off." Wait for the whoever to show up, and it's like, "Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, they don't. They're not like you're not getting me, copper." They're not like going in with Tommy guns.
So yeah, then we cut to like we see like he's in the house and the housing compound across the street is being torn down. Francis is trying to get Martin to leave. He's got a motorcycle in the living room, which is kind of fun. But I'm guessing he just has it there because it's probably known for theft, and so he's just hiding it there. But I'm not sure. It's a lot of weird stuff of motorcycles in the home. Like,
yeah,
like wasn't that in War of the Worlds that we watched, the one with the Tom Cruise one? Did he just have a motorcycle?
that was his car.
Oh, it was a car? Okay.
One of his cars was in the living room. It's like, why not? You can work on it right here.
Yeah. He just, his kids don't live there all the time. He can do whatever he wants with the living room or the kitchen. There's something worse about like, I understand, like, hey, the kitchen is like usually like a linoleum floor, probably easier to clean up, so it's probably better to have it there than in the living room with carpet usually. But also, like, that's where all the food is. I don't want all this oil around the food. So.
Yeah, and that was a Harley Davidson Springer.
Oh, okay.
Which would have been a very, very expensive motorcycle to have and own in Ireland.
Well, he had it.
Ill-gotten gains, I'm sure.
Then we see Martin is hanging out in a trailer because now they've just torn down all the housing, but he's still just hanging out. He's basically just squatting the entire housing complex. There's cops and officials trying to kick Martin out of the place. Martin returns at night to his trailer on fire. So obviously the government set his trailer on fire. So.
Very, very snatched scene.
Yeah.
It's like, well, understand he's doing that all at government expense too.
Yeah.
Like he's a known criminal. They're paying because remember when I don't know if they've done this yet, but yeah, essentially later you find out he's getting government money to do that. The government has to pay his legal fees because he's having a dispute with the government about tearing down his home.
Yeah.
And so he's just completely like using public resources and he's just a marauding criminal.
Next day, Martin is hanging out in a tent because he just adapts and overcomes, and then he negotiates like a house for himself and his family.
Yes.
Okay, and it's like,
This-
is it?
the housing council is like, okay, we'll give you. So he got a better deal for himself than all the other people that got moved out.
Yeah, yeah.
They gave him someplace actually nicer because they're like, yeah, we'll give you this if you'll knock it off.
So is the next place they're in the house he gets, or is it the house after that? That
The next place he's in is not the nice house. It's the one after the
okay,
second house.
okay. Because it made us. Because I thought like the next scene is like he's in his new house, and then like they get a better house for some reason. But I
Yeah.
didn't know because he has like 80 grand to get the next house, so I didn't know if that was the same 80 grand or whatever, or if it's the next 80 grand.
No, this is the house he's living in after his tent is another. It's the public is paying his
Okay,
expenses.
all right. We cut to act. Yeah, so that's in Act One. We have Act Two. We have dinner with the family in the new. Well, he wrote the new house, but this is just a house. Or this is where like Francis's sister lives, and so they've moved in
Yes.
because he has an
Yes.
ever-growing thing of kids. Um. And does he also have a relationship with her, Francis's sister?
Yeah, he has children with her
Okay.
in the movie and in real life. This actually happened. This guy
Okay.
did.
Because it seemed like it was implied but never outwardly stated. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's what's going on here.
No, because the cops would mock him for it later.
Okay,
They'd be like, "Which sister you sleeping with tonight?" You know, they'd say,
okay. We get a montage of Martin robbing a house, where he like takes like a train for like one of his kids and stuff like that. We also observe like a guy cheating on his wife. Do you have any idea what's going on here, Nathan? Is this like more like is this like a multi-story, like is this one house, or is this like some sort of housing complex?
I think this was like a house with multiple apartments in it.
Okay.
And he's robbing part of it and just like gathering intel in the other part. It's like, oh, that looks interesting.
Because
I'll remember this for later.
yeah, like this guy basically comes out of one room, see his wife sleeping in the bed, and then goes into another room where like a woman's taking her shirt off. I'm like, who's that lady? What's she doing there? What's going on? So,
Yeah.
but also like places like this, they just repurpose old buildings all the time rather than building anything new. So
Yeah.
you'll get weird stuff where it's like, this was a house, this was a Victorian house, and now it's a a 4 apartment building. So,
I was listening to some guys once talking about living in Chinatown in New York. They were, of course, comedians because it's like some of the only affordable places you can live are in Chinatown. They still have communal bathing and bathrooms in some of those really old
Yeah,
buildings.
yeah.
So, where it's like, yeah, you're just walking in and there's a family in there and you're walking into the shower naked, like, hey, what's going on? It's like, because they repurposed the building. They made individual living units,
Yeah, yeah.
but the bathroom, the plumbing, it's all in one
Yeah.
area. It's like, huh.
I'm living in college for the rest of my life.
Yeah. It's not that common, and it's mainly you and Chinese people.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, if you're okay with it, they're okay with it. But it's kind of weird. It's like, huh, I never heard of that.
Um,
But New York's where you like split a closet with 10 people for $7,000 a month too.
yeah,
So
yeah. But you can also like make $10,000 a month if you play your cards right. So
yeah. It's of gold.
But you still can't own a car. So,
Which-
but yeah, you can walk everywhere in New York. New York has public transportation that actually, as far as I know, works. So,
Yeah, as long as you don't get lit on fire by homeless people, you'll be fine.
or you can live on Long Island and maybe have a car, but that would also suck. So,
I don't know. Never been there. Or not been there in a long time.
well, it's
Not as an adult.
Well, when you hear about New York City, you just think like, oh, it's just everyone lives in a high rise and there's like, 10 million people on top of each other. But then you hear about like Long Island and it's basically like, yeah, we lived in a house and we had a fence in a backyard. And it's like, really, I don't associate anything near New York City as having like a 2-story house in a backyard.
Yeah. Very right wing.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's like, oh, yeah.
And union.
And union,
workers are right wing.
Oh, that's becoming the norm here, too. Here, like 27 years.
That's basically all trades now. Let's so.
Okay, because I'm just noticing now it's like these people staunch solidarity, don't buy from scab companies and vote Trump. It's like, huh? Okay.
um,
I must be getting old and just not accepting the new ways. I don't know. It's work,
I
but
don't think
whatever.
these are. I don't think these are new or lasting ways, but whatever.
Almost dead. It doesn't matter. They'll be over soon, one way or another.
um, Martin steals jewelry off the sleeping woman because like he sees like a bottle of pills. It's very
Yeah.
creepy at first because you think he's like it's a very rapey kind of scene. It's like okay, well at least that doesn't happen.
No, he's the good thief. He
Yeah.
would never do that.
Um, which also is like, did that lady take that drugs or did that guy drug the lady? I don't know. Anyways, um,
I guess what this establishes is like, yeah, this guy's a thief, but like nobody's good here. Like
yeah,
there's just bad stuff. There's infidelity, people taking drugs. It's like there's all kinds of bads. He's the fun guy of all.
he's stealing from children. He's the good one.
Yeah, he's the guy you root for. This is how depressing it is to live in this
That
country.
kid still has other trains that he can play with.
Yeah, his dad'll guilt trip him, or he'll guilt trip his dad into buying some more trains for him.
We cut to morning's breakfast. Martin and Francis are like thinking about buying a house. But here they mention that they won't take cash for a house, which is hilarious.
That's funny. Haven't been able to do that in America since like the 70s, so it's like they're just catching up. Like, oh yeah, you can't do that
um, but here,
because take someone who put a bunch of cash down to buy his first house, they want like paperwork. They
yeah.
want where did this come from? Sign this form. I need to take a picture of you. I need to take a picture of your ID. It's like, what are you doing? This is a down payment. It's like, well, you brought it in cash. It's like, well, yeah, but it was a legitimate source. I'm not a cocaine dealer. It's like, well, we don't know that. It's like, oh, this is weird. And then I got explained to me all these laws about how like the government really cracked down in the 70s on people just paying cash money for houses. Like, oh, okay. Is that because of the drug trade? Yeah. Okay. All
I mean,
right.
that's like the weird thing with like I'm not sure if this has changed at all, but because weed is still like federally illegal, like you can't have bank accounts for those businesses.
I know that was the case. I don't know what they're doing now.
Maybe just
I
banks
know
that
they were
don't
talking.
that aren't FDIC.
No, I think what they were doing was just like strong men you have to trust.
Yeah.
It's like we're going to build a building and put a bank vault in it, and we're going to charge you $500 a month to guard this money. But it's like if somebody knocks but you got to really trust someone. It's like, yeah, someone knocked us over all the money. What can we do? But I think now I don't know. It's become. I'll tell you, the places you buy marijuana here legally are the nicest new buildings being built.
yeah,
Got money coming in from something.
yeah.
Indirect lighting, a lot of cool like artwork on the building. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, we have there's some facility that we work on. I haven't been to it, but I heard about it, but it's just like a medical weed facility. And so like um Martin shows up to the bank to get 80 grand in banker's notes to get the house. And then and then like right across the street is the police department, so he goes in there to see Inspector Kelly. And then a couple of his buddies go into the bank as the money is still on the counter, and then they rob the bank to get his money back. And it's like, and like, even though it's like terrible, it's like it's kind of a fun genius for this movie. It's like, oh, he's a fun criminal. He thought
Yeah.
about something logically, and he screwed over the bank. Which even like here, like even Martin like intimates that the bank is just ripping everybody off. Um,
Yeah, he's a Robin Hood esque figure.
for a while. So.
Well, and actually, in real life, they're still sticking guns in people's faces and
Yeah,
scaring them. So it's like that's not fun.
yeah. So yeah, the police go into action at the bank robbery, and Ned immediately knows what's going on. He's like, "You showed up to give for your alibi, didn't you?" He's like, "Yeah." But also, like this is where you start the thing where he walks in the police department. You got the weird hand over the face stuff. That's where this starts, I believe. Which is just him, just I guess guarding his identity or being weird. I'm not sure. Because like later on, it's like he's like on TV and stuff, and he seems to be like narcissistic. It's like, cool, I'm on TV, but he still likes to hide his face and stuff like that. So, Francis,
Very different era where it's, if no one knows exactly what you look like, you still have a chance of like not getting picked off randomly.
yeah,
Not like nowadays where they would just have images of you on the internet and anyone who wanted to find you just do a reverse database search and be at your house. This was like the 80s
yeah.
when this was going on. And in Ireland, when, like I said, it was a completely irrelevant country.
The police go into action. Yeah. Francis and Martin look at their new house. I wrote they're presumably in a nice neighborhood because he's talking about like golfing and stuff like that, or going to a country club or something. So, although we never see their neighbors, but it's implied that like they are not welcome here because they are, they're a bunch of criminals. So.
Yeah, everyone knows who they are.
Yeah, I wrote the motorcycle helmet guys rob a casino or whatnot, but this is just actually this is just Martin and one of his gang guys, which I have none of their names. I know Martin and I know Jimmy. That's the only ones I bothered to remember. So.
Yeah. Well, the rest of them were just like in and out with one-liners. They didn't really stick out.
Well, there's like one guy I thought was like the IRA, and then I'm like, oh wait, I think I confused them. So you'll have to redirect me. Because there's the guy that they keep protesting at his house, like saying he's a drug dealer, and I'm like, is that his right man, or is that the IRA guy? And I can't remember, so I think
No, that's his right-hand man.
Okay, all right, yeah. See, I got that wrong. So yeah, they rob a casino. They're given chase by the police. They get clear of the cops and ditch the motorcycle, but then they get pinned in like an alleyway, which is a very narrow alleyway. So they're caught. They fade out. We cut to Martin's in custody. There's a montage of evidence being gathered. And then we cut to Martin and his gang are trying to figure out how to stay out of jail. Because there's two of them there, but really it's only Martin that's on trial. But that's just probably for clarity rather than
Yeah.
let's worry about the other guy getting out. I was just really starting intimidating because there's like a blindfolded guy they bring to a meeting, and I don't know who that guy is.
That's the guy who works for the police who knows who the forensic science guy is.
Oh, okay, all right.
Because they're actually introducing forensic evidence to tie him to the crime.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a guy who works for a certain amount of money. He's going to give up the address of the forensics guy.
Okay.
That's what I understood what was going on. Some of the dialogue in this movie, it's like they say it real fast to me. Yeah, it's like, huh, what just happened? Wait a minute.
Yeah, scenes sometimes just kind of happen in this movie, and I'm like, wait, where am I? And I'm also primed to keep looking for IRA stuff, and that really doesn't show up till like the back half of the movie. It's not here, so I'm faking myself out every time I watch this movie. It's like, when's the IRA stuff gonna happen?
No, the thing about Martin Cahill that made him interesting, because we've read books for the show about different stuff that went on, is he kind of had his own thing outside of, because a lot of organized crime and especially like in Dublin at this time, it sort of smeared in with the IRA, because the IRA controlled the poor neighborhoods and stuff.
Yeah.
And so they kind of said what goes on in the neighborhoods, and also they learned from the CIA. It's like, well, if you sell drugs and stuff in other places, you can scrape some of the money off the top for yourself. So that's where and you can steal cars and do all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, the IRA wanted to take what, they called it a tax.
Yeah.
Like if you commit crimes here, you pay a tax. Well, Cahill operated outside of that system. And he had enough of a public following that he was sort of allowed. It's like, okay, this guy's like, he's actually drawing attention to himself, and they're not paying so much to what we're doing with our crime. So we'll let it go until his crime's elevated to the point it's like, hey, we need to get our beak wet here. This is, we're letting too much money. We're leaving too much money on the table with this guy. So, but yeah.
Yeah. And even though Martin was violent, they didn't really kill people.
Yeah.
So I mean, a lot of
Well, in the
intimidation.
movie, in real life, he shot people
Oh,
and
okay,
stuff.
all
No, he's a criminal. He's
right.
some people don't. Pointing. Some people do not respond if you point a gun at them. Or like, knock this off, or you know what's what, and it's like, show me what's what. Show me the charge. And now some of these guys, they will do it. They're like, okay, you know, it's like I'm not, because if I lose face, no one's ever going to believe a threat I make. Now I have to shoot you.
Then we cut to his birthday party at Martin's for like one of his mini kids.
Yes.
Then we cut to some guy. Oh wait, this is the forensics evidence guy. He goes into his car and explodes, but like not in a way that kills him. It's just like in a disorienting way. The guy doesn't
In real
die.
life, this guy got partially blinded and disfigured.
Oh, okay, all right.
And he was also weirdly, most of his training was in the United States.
Huh. Okay.
He is a forensics. He was Irish, but he was the first guy to bring. He got his degrees in forensic stuff in the U.S. and then he went back because he was the first guy to introduce this in the 80s. Garda of like, yeah, you can do like stuff beyond fingerprints and all that.
Huh.
It was like, oh, so he was actually like a kind of a known figure, for the country. It's like I'm bringing, science to solving crimes. Because a lot of solving crimes in this time in Ireland was, we're going to beat the shit out of you until you confess. Like, that's satisfying, but that's not actually effective, because if you beat on people long enough, they'll confess to anything.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you're not actually getting the guy. It's like, we've arrested all these guys.
We got the next guy to beat.
The crime rates are going up. Why is that? It's like, I don't know, probably because you're punching him with a leather with a sap, and he'll just tell you anything. So yeah, that was they call that, because that was a problem in the UK too, where they would just round up the 10 poorest guys in town and beat on them until one of them confessed, and it's like, we're doing good jobs. It's like, no, the crime's still out of sight. Why is this? And
I mean, that's that one brilliant season of The Wire where, like, basically, like, we've cordoned off a section of the city where basically all crime is legal. And then when they introduce that to the city council or whatever, they're like, "Holy shit, crime's down. What'd you do?" They're like, "Oh shit, we can't get behind that."
yeah, what'd you do? It's like, well, we made a portion of our city into hell, and everyone's fine with it. It's like, oh, what happens once that's burned down to ashes? Well, then we have to find a new hell part of our city. It's like, no. This isn't how you win mayoral elections. That's
But no, but I mean, like, it was like they're going with the flow of, like, whatever humanity was going on at the time to go towards worse instincts, but they weren't just rounding people up, wasting resources, pretending they're solving the crime when they're not. So
yeah.
so here they just like, well, here we've coordinated crime in the section that nobody cares about, and like the crime rates are down and people get to go about their business.
Yeah.
And occasionally there's overdoses.
Yeah. Sounds familiar.
But it's better than just, you're gonna have overdoses anyway, so it's might as well. But anyways, that's all speculative. We have no idea if that would ever actually work. So
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, in the show they called it Hamsterdam, so it's basically, it's an analog to Amsterdam where just all drugs are legal. So
yeah,
and things aren't crazy because I guess people learn to moderate if it's all legal. So
they have that around here. Like, to places where we could go buy, anything you wanted, as long as you got money and everyone's cool. Now, I would not recommend guys that look like us stay there and shoot up. But if you have the money, they have the drugs.
But but this is also like famous. In this time, car bombs are famous in Ireland at this time. So
yeah, there's actually a drink called the Irish car bomb.
Yeah. So we cut to court. The lawyer wants a postponement of the trial until the doctor is healed. Ned and Martin. We cut to Ned and Martin are in the interrogation room, and Ned leaves so one cop can just beat him up. So like that's
Yep.
that.
Oh yeah. So yeah, we have that. We
Yeah,
show it.
yeah,
Yeah. Still got a still got a red-faced Irish guy.
yeah. But Kelly leaves the room, so he's like, "Well, it's not. Whatever happens, happens." So,
Yeah.
uh,
Cameras off.
and he's also still doing, even though he's in like an isolated room, he's still doing the hand stuff so on his face.
Yeah.
So, Martin gets out, he gets back, and then he starts hatching a plan. Martin goes and spies on what is this O'Connor's jewelry, or yeah, something like jewelry depot.
Yeah.
Or something.
O'Connor's Jewelers. It's the what they call the Herald's Cross robbery.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then we cut to the doctor shows up at court for a testimony. Here he's got like he's got like two what do you call those things? Crutches. He's walking around on crutches. One of the crew runs a distraction by being in a mask that Martin was in and covering his face, and so like all the media go for him, and Martin just walks in behind them. So just a fun little, just kind of shows like his methods for feints and stuff like that and distractions. So. The judge orders protection of the jury, so now they have to like stay in hotels and stuff, like under police surveillance, lest they be intimidated. And then we cut to. Oh wait, no, that's not immediately. So he eventually just intimidates witnesses, anyways. Oh wait, no, this is for the jury. The witnesses aren't under protection.
It's basically what we call sequestering the jury, where they have to stay in hotels guarded by police.
Cut to Martin has his gang lined up as they go over the plan for this O'Connor's robbery. The cops come in and they scramble to play pool. So I don't know if like they own this place or if this is just a place where the criminals hang out.
I think they own it.
Okay.
Or somebody does through some means.
That was a big thing in the 90s of like just crime and seediness happened at pool halls.
They're seedy places.
Okay. Is there a reason for that, Nathan?
A lot of illicit gambling goes on there.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You can gamble on the games. You can get your drugs, whores if you want them. Every place in town where there's a bunch of pool tables, it doesn't matter if the town has 1 million people in it or 5,000.
Yeah.
Seedy stuff going on there. It's kind of like the laundromat of, it's like, so you got to be there, but something bad's going on.
Yeah, every once in a while you do have this like, for some reason, like pool sharks come into vogue every now and again. So
yeah,
it's been a while, but like the 50s had it, and then like the late, we had the late 80s had it again with like color money and stuff like that, and it faded out again. Now it's just all Texas Hold'em or whatever the next thing is. Who knows? Pickleball,
crypto, nonsense people are into. Yeah.
We get some court shenanigans for a mistrial. I can't even remember what it is that they try to get a mistrial.
Well, he goes and talks to one of the witnesses and says, "Hey,
not yet."
Oh, no. Okay, I thought that was one.
No, not yet. I forget. That's the next thing they do. I forget what they're doing. He's trying to get a mistrial. Oh, I can't even remember. Is this? Oh wait, no. This is where the guy comes in on the upper floor and yells at something, claiming that the doctor is like a criminal or something like that. And
they do that weird court. Yeah, okay.
And then because like Martin's lawyer tries to suggest that being that the Druid pool is now tainted from this like unwarranted testimony, and so now they must declare a mistrial, which the judge just goes like, "Hey jury, just forget all that shit you heard. We're going on with the case." And then the next scene is we have Martin. This is where like what the judge accuses Martin of, like, are you trying to be a lawyer in your spare time? Cut to him, he's like breaking into a law library or something like that, and he just happens to find a book with the exact loophole he needs for his case. So it's very on the nose, but it works. Which is like the line he finds is that if the witness doesn't declare a fear for their life, then like it's not grounds for like like assault with it or robbery with a deadly weapon or something like that,
Yeah.
So this is where he sneaks into the witness's house and threatens her to confess she wasn't threatened, which is just great irony. So it's like, remember, you weren't threatened. I'm threatening you. Yeah, because he just directly has a gun in her face. So,
Yeah, that's like good old fashioned English common law type sovereign citizen arguments that like, yeah, maybe that would work in some places. I think that I don't think that would work nowadays, but
I mean, and as we know, if you do any research whatsoever, law presented in movies are always incorrect. They just find like the funnest ways to present it because that's just what you have to do. Because
yeah, they have to compress like a lot of complex stuff into a 10-minute scene.
yeah,
They're like, let's make it funny. That's
yeah, because
because
well, yeah, because like every law drama,
negotiation.
well, every law drama is about like the kind of back and forth chess games that have to go on, and then there's like big revelations that happen where it's like in actual court stuff, like so many times things have to be revealed like months ahead of time. There's so much research and like, it's all this boring stuff in the background where they throw, lawyers making, hundreds of dollars an hour to do research. So, so that yeah. If you wonder why lawyers, I mean, lawyers make a lot of money because they're doing the research. It's just very boring, but it's like all for the um, how the system operates. Where that's just what you have to do. Which I have to imagine that just with technology that just gets worse. Do you think lawyers are using AI now? They're just getting that and just knocking it out.
Don't actually know. The cost of research sometimes will force a settlement. It's just like, yeah, we're gonna just put this over your head versus how about if you settle it, because it's all just giant contract negotiation.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh yeah, I can research this for 500 hours, and it costs $20,000, and and then you'll still lose, or it's not going to increase, or we can just settle for the X, Y, or Z. No, I mean, computers have actually made like contracts more difficult to get out of and more difficult or easier to find loopholes in. But yeah, as far as like finding specific things or whatever, a lot of that still requires imagination. It's like, how can I make this apply to that?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because it's
So
all interpretive and constantly growing and changing. So, and then you need to find precedent, and that's basically you have to basically be a historian to get all that stuff.
yeah, but essentially, if I pay a lawyer $10,000, like I can get out of my DUI or whatever. I don't, unless as long as nobody got killed. But I don't know like the mechanism in there. It's like, oh, we'll just find some reason to do this, and it's like, all right, cool. I don't ask. It's like because it's magic. It's like I don't need to know how the sausage is made. Here's 10 grand.
um, we cut to it's night. They shoot out the lights at the O'Connors Wholesale Jewelers. Then they play this. Then they start playing as repair workers, and so this gives them an excuse to get like a cherry picker and like break their way into the building because they've determined because it had like an electric fence and all these kind of alarms, but they determined that um, this light was a weakness, so they're able to get in through the top of the building without turning an alarm on. Um, we cut to it's morning. The two guys hung out all night to get into the guard shack when they let a guy in. So they hold him up and like then they're able to let the van in with everybody in the van, and they're robbing the building in soccer kit. So because it's part of their disguise. We have Jimmy's pretending to be a security guy, and then a huge crowd just shows up, which is just hilarious because it's like nobody was here for like the first 5 hours of this movie, and suddenly there's a line. Which I think there's like some sort of effect like that. Like some people did an impromptu study where they would just start a line like in New York City, and then people would just get in the line.
Oh, just like what's going on? Let's.
Yeah, just like let's get. Is this some exclusive club? Like, all right, I'll try to get in. So, inside they blow their way through into the vault, which you just hear these explosions on the outside. You never actually see that, which is hilarious because I don't even remember explosives being on the table for like the robbery, but they've managed to do it and not blow up all the gold or whatever.
Yeah.
There's some hang-ups, but they end up getting out of there because they have to like get everybody out of the way of the doorway and stuff like that. Um, they put that so yeah, they're in two cars. They pull over in a lot somewhere and they dump all their gear in a car and set it on fire. Lots of cars on fire in this movie, but it's Ireland at the time, so it's just par for the course.
Yeah.
They pull the van into a garage that they've like sectioned off somewhere for the criminal stuff. They look over the gold in awe. Martin says to divide it up equally, and they say like he should get more because this is where they call him the general. So that's kind of like the first mention of that. Or I guess actually it's in the timeline of the movie or in the timeline of the events. This would be the first time that's mentioned, but they call him that in the beginning of the movie, but that's the end of the movie. Martin leaves the score and then he goes to court on his motorcycle. They're interviewing the interfered witness, and she doesn't admit to being in fear for her life, and so Martin's able to get off the charge. And so they go outside, and immediately there's just newspapers printed saying like Martin gets off or whatever. So it's like that was quick.
Yeah, it makes it seem like basically earlier that day he was robbing O'Connor's.
Yeah.
And then goes to court to get off. And it's like, what a day of victory. Happened that way, but it's fun to think it did.
Yeah. Then we cut to the gang get the loot valued and make a deal, which is very funny here because the guy's like, I'll give you 10, it's worth $1 million. I'll give you 10 grand for it. And then, or no, I'll give you 5 grand for it. And he's like, that's cool. How about 10% of its value? Otherwise, you're not walking out here alive. And like,
and the guy's like, okay.
Yeah, he doesn't know. Yeah, he kind of laughs nervously because he doesn't know if they're lying or not. So
no, they weren't lying.
Then we cut to a bunch of pigeon stuff where like Jimmy's raising pigeons and there's like a truck's like releasing pigeons and it's going back to the coop, and I thought there was going to be a whole like carrier pigeon like crime thing going on here, but it's just like an aside. I'm not sure it is what.
It's like a personality quirk.
Okay.
He's into pigeons. Pigeons there was an organized crime figure that was into pigeons. And this has become a motif in a couple of films.
Yeah.
Because they had one guy that was a flower guy that was really into floral arrangement. They had a guy that was into pigeons, and that came into later movies. Like I think in The Town, the guy was a floral guy.
Okay.
It was like the kingpin of the guy who was fencing all their money and stuff. And so yeah, it seems to be a thing. It's like, oh, this is quirky. He's into like these animals and stuff. And his family like really loves him. Like his kids are excited. Everyone's excited. He seems like a fun dad.
Then the next thing we have Martin accuses Jimmy of stealing a gold bar, and here he nails his hands to a pool, basically crucifies him on a pool table.
Yeah.
Well, he just puts nails through his hands. And it's also implied he did a bunch of other stuff, and but here he admits to some stuff, doing some side stuff to get his fix. So this is basically where you learn that he's a junkie. But at the end of it, Martin declares him innocent because like no one would take all that pain and not talk. So he's like,
yeah, he feels like bad about it. He's like, oh, I don't think he did it. No one would take that. It's like old school pliers and just pulls the nails out, and then takes him to the hospital.
Yeah.
Like cutting in line and shoving him at a doctor. It's like, here, fix him.
Yeah, and he's got his hands like in the prayer kind of. So it's like,
and then he's just passing out. I'm assuming from blood loss, pain, or both.
Yeah.
He just walks out of the hospital like, all right, it's kind of like the American equivalent of your buddy OD, and you just push him in the door in the wheels. Because if you go in with him, you got to answer questions. It's like, oh, just rolling him in.
Then we cut to Martin meets with a couple of IRA guys where here it's really weird because like everyone is like kind of not looking at each other and walking in circles, which I'm guessing is probably some sort of anti-surveillance method, but it's
very like American mob movie like things where guys are talking with their hands over their mouth. They're not making eye contact, but they're also at the same time being obvious and having an intense. It's like these guys are clearly talking to each other. That is all schizophrenic, arguing with somebody who's not there.
Here's what like I guess presuming like Martin thought he was gonna be like get a job from the IRA, but here they're actually here to rip him off, and they want half of the O'Connor job. So Martin gets
Yeah.
angry with that, and it's like, um, this is where I'm getting confused with stuff because I wrote the crowd accusing the IRA of selling drugs, but this is like stuff with his right hand man or something. Is this
Yeah, it's someone they can get to.
okay?
Because see, where Martin lives, that's a hoity-toity neighborhood. You're not going to get the neighbors do not do what the IRA says there because they're taxpayers. But his right-hand man still lives in a poorer part of Dublin,
Okay.
so they can get the community to. It's like, hey, we'll give you a pint if you go down here and call this guy a drug addict or a drug pusher and throw bricks at his house. All right, it's like no problem. Or
Oh,
they're
so
just
this
so
this is a ruse. Like he's just
yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So because it looks like his right hand man is uncomfortable the whole time. But it's like okay, I guess if it's a ruse.
Oh yeah, this is a violent, drunken Irish mob at his door that's actually working for the IRA, which is a scary group to have, against you, at that time.
We cut to Martin gives a speech to his crew to not do anything with drugs. So because that's what's the drugs are coming up and it seems to be easy money, and he's like, don't be swayed by that. It's not going to end well. Because also the government has a big anti-drug push, so that's not going to be.
That's actually super true, and I can tell you from like real life, not just from shit I read in books. If you're not selling drugs, running guns, or running prostitutes, they don't care what you do. As long as you're like kind of low key about it, like you can't rob banks. That's another big red flag.
Yeah.
Armed robbery, walking into a bank. But yeah, everyone gets it's like, oh, drugs are where it's at because it's like, yeah, you don't have to work nearly as hard, but it brings a lot of bright red light
Yeah.
attention. But yeah, you can do other stuff all weeks, months. You won't make drug money, but they do not have 20 guys trying to figure out how to get you. So it does make good sense. That's why the mob and stuff in America avoided it for so long. Because it's like, well, the Reagan's saying just say no. It's like we're just stealing cars and stuff off semis. Like they don't care about that. We're not selling heroin. It worked for a long time until it didn't. But
Then we cut to the crew case out an art gallery. We cut to its night and they test out the security response, but here it's not just a test. They watch the response and then immediately go in and rob the place after they've done the response. So,
like within an hour,
well,
because
like as
it's like
soon as the last guy leaves, they're in. So it's which I guess I think they made some line where it's like they won't respond to a false alarm in a certain amount of time, and that's they've hit that window, so that's why they're able to just go up and open a window and get in there, and there's no alarm or something like that.
well, also they put paste over the motion
Oh, okay,
sensors,
okay, okay, all
so it wouldn't even trigger the second time.
right, okay.
Because what triggered it the first time was they figured out what was on the window and they disabled that, and then they put paste or gum or something over the motion sensors, and these are 80s tech motion sensors, so
Yeah, they're garbage.
yeah,
They got
so
some
it's pretty,
dust, a film of dust on them. They're useless.
yeah, so it's like, yeah, then we're going to set off the alarm, disabling the alarm, and then as soon as those guys leave, we're going to go in and just
um. Then we cut to Martin meets with Kelly and he uses him as an alibi again, where or at least that's what he says. Like, yeah, this is what you're doing. Then Martin talks with the press, which he still has his hand on his face, but everybody knows who he is, and he's like talking to him. So he kind of like seems to be lighting up to being like a more public figure in a weird way, or at least a icon in some way.
yeah,
Infamous.
yeah.
uh,
It's what do they call that, pastiche now is this way.
we cut to it's nighttime. The crew grab the stash of paintings and they cut them like out of the frames and roll them up. Which that's how I've heard art theft goes.
Seems scary to me. It's like this thing's worth $20 million. Well, pull a razor knife out and cut it out of its
Yeah.
frame. Why don't we just dismantle the frame? It's like, well, we're in a hurry, so I don't know.
Yeah. The cops start following Martin around. He's getting more publicity and running pranks on officials. There's some where like he puts like a T-shirt and like something in a golf hole, and I forget why that pisses somebody off, but it's a thing that happens.
Oh, it's the one the chief of police, because they basically set up something called the Tango Squad in real life, where it's what it's in America. It's what the FBI calls bumper lock. It's like they're gonna follow you around everywhere. They did this with the mob.
Okay.
It's like we're gonna have agents. Literally, they will bash into your bumper. They'll be so close to you. You will never. If you go out to a restaurant, there's two FBI guys waiting for you in the restaurant. There's rotating surveillance. Basically, you're screwed. That's what they did to him. They were doing what we'd call bumper lock here, which means you know you can't do anything, you can't say anything, you're under constant surveillance. And yeah, that's the chief of that, whoever it was, the guy above Kinney, that was his like favorite golf course. So they went and dug a bunch of holes in it and put the shirt and the thing on the where you knock the ball in the hole. So that's what that was.
Then we cut to Frances' sister is pregnant again with Martin's kid.
Yeah.
Martin says he has the criminal vote, which is like 60% of the country, which is probably true, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it's a poor country at that time, so yeah.
Martin is taking the sister to the hospital, and they're being harassed by the cops. They're like, yeah, like you said here, they're literally bumping their car in the back. But then he like speeds up and brakes checks the cops with a pregnant lady in the car, and then he hops in with like his wife and her sister, and they get in the back of the car like, yeah, take us to the hospital. So it's like,
yeah, his taillights are smashed out. He's like, it's illegal to drive with broken taillights. You got to take us. She's giving birth.
So I have that being the end of Act 2. We get Act 3. The crew show up to meet the new baby, Charlotte. Martin says he has an offer from some paramilitary group, but he's like warned about them. So these are like people worse than the IRA or something like that.
Well, this is what what they called the provos.
Okay.
And those are the people. Okay, so the IRA basically wants Irish independence. Okay, the provos, they want to be part of the UK and they want to fight they're the Protestants, and they want to. This is roughly how I understand it. So this is the terrorist group that fights the IRA, because they're Protestant and they want to be loyal to, they want to be loyal to England, or I forget. It's all this weird mix of things.
Okay.
But yeah, they're essentially like the other gang that opposes the IRA. I think that's how it works. I'm not sure, because they were part of the IRA at one time and then they split.
Okay.
And they all hate each other, and it's a part of this obscure 1,000-year-old war in this country. I don't understand. But yeah, they're basically like, they're another terrorist gang.
And if you want to mind, Nathan, can you take it from here?
Yeah, so at this point, he's making an agreement with the Ulster Volunteer Force. Okay, so this is the group. The provisional IRA is that's the IRA. This is the group, the Ulster Rifles or whatever. These are the people that want to be part of they want to be part of England.
Okay.
So they're the anti-IRA. I had my notes all screwed up. So yeah, they're saying they'll help him fence the paint because he's having trouble getting rid of these paintings.
Okay. Well, yeah, because that's what they mentioned. Because like their score for stealing all that gold is like, here's $1 million, but here it's implied that one painting's worth like $17 million. They're like, I don't get it. But as we learned from Velvet Buzzsaw, apparently the whole art scenes is all a scam anyway. So
it's basically a way to launder money.
Yeah.
It's a way to get money legitimate. So he's trying to make a deal, and all his guys are like, yeah, don't make a deal with those guys. They're terrible. He says, and the IRA will kill you if you do that.
Oh, okay.
So but he makes an agreement with them, and they're going to fence the money, which they're going to use to buy arms from South Africa. So they can bring machine guns onto the streets of Belfast and fight the IRA. And
would this be the time where like South Africa was cut off from like weapons, and they had to make a bunch of their own, and they would sell it to anybody?
Yes, you could buy, and they would take cash.
Okay.
Because the big weapon supplier to the IRA, besides a bunch of guys in Boston sending him money was the Libya, and so the Ulster people, the Orangemen, and all that, they're big arms suppliers with South Africans.
Okay.
They do cash for guns, and so that's like, so essentially, like once the guard had found out about that deal, and it's like, oh, they're going to bring guns onto the streets. So now you have the government of the UK, the government of Ireland, and the IRA all gunning for you at this, giving these people millions of dollars to bring death and destruction onto the streets, and so yeah, essentially like, and they make it publicly known what he did and what's going on. So the public sentiment is starting to turn against him also.
Okay, this is where he's like overly sensitive about his image on TV, right? So,
Yes,
okay,
yes.
this is where he gets
Because
more
now,
paranoid and stuff like that.
yes, this is when he passes out, and you find out because the doctor comes to the house and he's like, "You're not using your insulin properly." This is when it becomes, it's like, oh yeah, he's diabetic too. This is why he doesn't drink or use drugs, because he has, diabetes, and it's like the stress is really getting to him.
Okay.
And
Because at first I wrote that was like it's a hard episode, but then the doctor says you have diabetes, and like, is that the first mention of this? That's the only first time I knew. So.
it's always been a thing with him, because when they're splitting up the gold initially, and the guys say you should have a more of a share because you did it, he's like, well, I won't shoot it up my arm or piss it against the wall like you guys will. I'll have my money longer, so therefore my share is more, even though I'm getting the same. Kind of his weird socialist idea
Okay.
of like, you're a junkie and I'm not, so yeah,
I'll support your habit or rehabilitation, whatever.
And this is also when the Cahill gang is extorting restaurant guys and street food vendors.
Okay.
They're doing like protection racket stuff against small business people, that's starting to hurt his opinion,
Yeah.
or
Public opinion. Yeah.
Yeah. And then him and his wife and him and his wife and his other sister wife there's stress in the home.
Yeah.
Because they're like, this is getting to be too much. And and in the last act of the movie, like, right, it's basically a replay of the assassination scene from the beginning, but he's going to go somewhere and he's going to try to set things right and get things under control. And then the guy just runs up to the car and shoots him. And and of course his wives go nuts, blaming the police and everyone. It's like, why weren't you here to stop it? Which, that's actually a fair question, because he was under 24-hour surveillance. And just some dude walks up with a 357 Magnum, and
yeah, well, because like in the opening scene, they show him like they cut to like an organized station, and like, we got him. It's like, did you? And also, like, there's the weird, because now they have like kind of the first person angle of it, and they show him like smiling right before he gets shot, which I don't know if that's about him like being at peace with his life. It's like, well, I guess this is how it had to end, or
yeah, well, he was under the character we see in the fun-loving kind of whimsical bandit. He's starting to break down at this point.
Yeah,
because he realizes he's made a deal that he's like, everyone is against him now.
Yeah.
And everyone can put a button on him, and he cannot protect himself.
Yeah.
And he was actually worried too. There was one line too. He was worried about the guys in his gang getting killed.
Okay.
Because he's like, they're going to start picking off, Johnny and Jack and all those guys, and they're just a bunch of druggies. And what have I done? So he was supposedly going to make things right in the movie. In real life, he was a gangster and a murderer.
Okay.
So, but
he's a more interesting character in the movie. So
yeah. Oh, he's just a hardcore criminal. He's just a guns in your face criminal, and it's like, no matter how you try to.
So he didn't have like any kind of spark of personality that's portrayed in the movie, or
no, he did.
Okay.
He did, because like, if you research it later, because another thing the Irish government introduced that they did not have was what we'd call RICO, or assets forfeiture.
Yeah.
So now it was kind of shitty, because after he was dead, buried in the ground, then they came after the two wives and all his assets. Like, they wanted to get him out of the house and stuff, because it was just a public embarrassment that this guy had gotten away with this. And they found out this guy had a lot of money. He was really good with his money. Very, very good. Enough to set his family up forever. But they because they introduced like RICO type laws that they didn't have before. It took until like the late 90s to get all his money, but it was an astounding amount of money he hit, and they had no idea. He basically saved almost 80% of the money he stole.
Huh, okay.
So he was like, yeah, he was actually a shrewd guy when it came to that.
Well, yeah, I guess you don't need things if you never buy anything if you can just steal it.
No, because remember a lot of the famous scenes in the movie were him in line to get what they call, he's got a guy got to get my dole check.
Yeah.
He was always getting dole payments, and it's like, oh, that's welfare. He's in line to get his
he
welfare.
doesn't have a job, so
Yeah, so he still qualifies for welfare. And they even said something about, oh, I get a gasoline allowance too of like, 40 pounds or whatever to look for a job. It's like, okay, this is crazy. But yeah. So yeah, that was that's kind of an interesting postscript to like they in it, this guy and a few other guys, also the murder of Veronica Guerin, that really introduced, like, it made Ireland suddenly, they like supercharged into being a modern government.
Okay.
Have like provincial police that just went around like, oh, you don't want to be doing that, Danny. They actually were organized in a group, and they had a huge problem with corruption in their police too. So they have a very interesting system of oversight where it's almost like a region by region guy, and they get together and have a meeting and like what kind of corruption's going on, and they always work to oversee it.
So,
But that's what happens when your economy grows 22% 1988 until like 2008. It's like, oh, we're a real country now. We have responsibilities,
so
which is also why like crime like this almost completely vaporized in Ireland too, because suddenly they just threw
it's just
millions.
easier to get a legitimate job than to be a criminal.
Yeah, you can actually get a real job. The IRA doesn't exist as a political violent force anymore because they had the Good Friday Accords in 98, I think. So yeah, a lot of things changed in Ireland, and this was like just there was a before and after, and Martin Cahill was kind of like the period on that sentence. Because now, I mean, they don't have these kind of problems. I'm sure they have other problems, but
so have any of Martin Cahill's kid weirdly go on to do anything interesting with their lives?
not find any history about them. And it's hard to research because they were all minors when this went on, and in a lot of those countries they don't even publish their names.
Okay.
They protect the children there, so it's like, yeah, they might have, but I haven't heard about it.
Okay.
He had a total of 5 children.
Oh, okay. In the movie, it seems like he has like 9 children or something.
Nah, it's 5, but he was very. It was a My Little Pony birthday type. It was lavish gifts on him, like a lot of mob guys. They always give their kids whatever they want.
Yeah.
He kind of followed that mold, or at least that's what it appeared to be from the movie and the things I read.
Well, we're saying,
but it. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
We're saying a problem in space containing the supercut of scenes from the imperfect collection of the movies that is the Verhoeven Effect. Nathan, what one scene from this movie are we shoving into space?
We're gonna do the scene the first time him and John Voight are in the station together, and he establishes the alibi.
Okay.
It's like, why are you here? It's like, oh, I want to report, police brutality. It's like, oh God, what have you done? You just know that that's what's going on. Okay, that's this guy's whole life. And he actually, in the movie, he does seem to be a sympathetic character.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, this guy was always going to be this. Because this was a country with 0 opportunities. If you were born in a certain class of people, you're done.
Yeah.
This is your life. Oh, by the way, the gold record that he was stealing from people's houses, did you see what that was? That was that was the gold record from the Deliverance soundtrack.
Okay.
This guy actually robbed John Borman's house.
Oh, really? Okay.
And stole that gold record off the wall. That's why it's in there.
So, yeah, John Borman has a personal connection to Martin Cahill.
Yeah. Probably knew who he was. I mean, like, it's a whole country with 5 million people in it.
Do you think Michael Mann was ever robbed by the cool criminals he hung out with?
Probably. Maybe. I don't know.
Or maybe it's like, he's off limits. He's too cool.
Michael Mann made those guys look really cool.
Yeah.
maybe he did. That was the tax he had to pay. Is like he makes us look good. We're not going to mess with Michael Mann. Also, Michael Mann is such a such a technical, almost like I love filmmaking, and this is why they probably saw him as an innocent
Yeah.
in some ways. It's like, don't beat up on that guy. He doesn't know any better. He knows not what.
He doesn't know where he is or who we are.
Yeah, he wants to like this would look this shooting you're about to do. If we filmed this just right, if we got the lights just right, this would be an amazing scene. But yeah,
Um,
uh,
you can find us on Letterboxd, username VHE. What are 1 out of 5 stars, Nathan? What are we giving this movie, or what are
I'm
you
gonna
giving
give
this movie? As I put this on you every week. So.
I'm gonna give this movie a 4 out of 5.
Okay.
The only reason it doesn't get a 5 out of 5 is some of the Irish slur dialect in this, where it's like, okay, we
Yeah,
just jump scenes,
yeah.
and I feel
There's some bad ADR or just competent enough ADR, but you know it's ADR, and there's also the editing is very, while sometimes clever, very disorienting other times.
yeah, because if you're just casually watching this, maybe this is cool. Like I'm taking notes and stuff, and
Yeah.
it's like, wait, okay, they're doing this, they're having this conversation, and then the guy's talking like Brad Pitt in 5 minutes. It's like, hold on, why are we at this next scene? What's going on? I felt like I had to rewind. So maybe as a casual viewer, but I don't know. It's like some of the stuff. It's like, I mean, it's like a lot of John Borman movies. It's like he stitches together the stories, these
Yeah.
beautiful scene from scene from scene. It looks cool, but sometimes it's like, now why is this happening?
Well, and sometimes disorientation is a part of his style. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah,
But because this one's so straightforward, that disorientation just feels disorienting. it's, it's not like, oh wow, what does this mean? There's not. It's not really like that. Because like Hell in the Pacific, it's like it's all interpretive.
yeah. No, this is like real events stuff, and there's not much to like. Oh, what's the deeper meaning behind this?
Yeah. There's no time you think like there's no time where you're thinking like, oh, did that really happen? It's like, no, everything happened in this movie. So
I mean, the deeper meaning I got about it is like I researched like the rise and fall of the Celtic tiger and like the Irish economy from the 70s to the 80s to the and how this like, oh yeah, this is almost like a time capsule of a country that very rapidly transformed into something else. And it was like all these guys, from the cops to Martin Cahill were just kind of left behind. It's like, yeah, nothing like this could ever happen again. Not because it's bad or it's wrong, it's because it just that world doesn't exist anymore. You've heard that saying, like the world you lived in doesn't exist anymore. You actually get to see that happen in this. Like, oh, okay.
um well, you can find us at verhoeveneffect.com. There we have listener support. You can support us on a month's time with our 99 cents, 4.99 or 9.99. You can cancel anytime. You can rate our podcast wherever you want on whatever platform of your choice. You can give us whatever rating you want. The only thing the algorithm listens to is the highest rating. Remember, give us the highest rating. Let's destroy the algorithm and give everyone a chance.
Yeah, because the people that are pro algorithm are not doing a very good job in this country. And I'll leave it to you to watch the news. You talk about the world you lived in doesn't exist anymore. Well, everyone needs to take a gander. Don't watch the news 24/7. You'll become.
That's not it. That's not even the present. That's not even the past. Like the world you live in 10 minutes from now is not the world you live in anymore.
Yeah, we're not waxing poetically about the 90s here.
It's like, wow, things made sense a half hour ago, not anymore. It's like, I'll just wait. We'll make less sense half an hour from now. So.
So yeah, these pro algorithm guys, we don't need them. It's kind of like become what religion became. It's like, yeah, this seems cool, but the people interpreting it are evil, so it is therefore irrelevant.
Weirdly, it's like weirdly like what you should be doing is actually weirdly turning everything into a binary. Because now everyone wants a rating for everything, and basically what you should be doing is either 5 stars or just don't respond.
Yeah. Yeah, 0 or 1.
Well, don't give us 0 because that'll affect the score. Just don't respond because that won't affect the score.
Yeah. Yeah. So the two polarities here you're saying are 5 or
No
no
response.
response.
Yes.
So remember, folks, 5 or null.
And we thank you.
And we thank you. And we need this. We need this to get bigger because I need all the inaccurate, stupid, and wrong things I say scrutinized by millions of people. They can tell me exactly what they think of me.
um, we just need 5,000 people to buy us a beer every month. Is that too hard?
Yeah.
That's not a big audience. That's all I ask.
Please. They say this is low effort content, but have you ever had a conversation with most people? This is very high effort content.
Well, I always thought our thing was like overeducated blue collar guys. So,
Yeah.
which is maybe
I don't know
super annoying. I don't know.
I don't know. Well, I have zero education, so I
Yeah,
don't
but
know how.
you're self-educated in a way that beyond
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
like most people who consider themselves self-educated and like I did the research, which just means I ignored scientists. Like you actually went out and now it's like I'm gonna read Shakespeare. It's like who the fuck
Oh,
does that on their own? So
yeah. The literature stuff I got, like science, it's like, yeah, I don't understand.
you're basically what's that like you basically have like an honorary English degree, Nathan, just by proxy. So.
Oh, yeah. I could be awarded if I achieved something in entertainment. They would give me an honorary degree. Would give me an honorary bachelor's degree from a mid-cap university in the Midwest because that's where we
We'll
dwelled
get you a
most of my.
Big Ten bachelor degree. So,
Yeah.
because now everybody's in the Big Ten, so it's you can just get that.
Yes, and the prices reflect it accordingly.
Oh, really? Did you try to get a price to a game or try to get tickets to a game and it was crazy?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we could go. I've taken my son to games that are like the schools that U of M is just going to pound into dust.
Yeah.
Like yeah, those, I bought them 2 years in advance, so that was like $179. But if it's the Ohio State game in Ann Arbor, it's like that's $1,000. It's like
Jesus.
that's $1,000, and you have to have binoculars
Yeah.
to see the players. Like that's never gonna happen. You just show up for the brawl in the city afterwards. That's what my son did. So
You can find us at Twitter at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us on Blue Sky Social at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us at Facebook at Verhoeven Effect. And you can find us on YouTube at American Greed Factory. Watch both this and that show live and unedited. So for the Verhoeven Effect podcast, I'm Conlon.
and I'm Nathan.
Goodbye, America.